Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I have a special guest with us. He is the host of a TV show that's on 20 different stations right now, all throughout the country, and it's called After Hours Cinema. I have with us Lee Turner. Lee, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm so glad to be here and talking about After Hour Cinema, but more importantly, talking about the love of horror. You can't go wrong discussing horror ever, in my opinion. It's the universal genre. So,
I agree, my friend. I agree. Now, and tell us a little bit about After Hours Cinema.
well, it kind of a little bit of backstory, and I talk with my hands, and I apologize for
It's fine.
that.
I do too.
It got started. I'm an attorney by trade. My day job is being a little small town solo practitioner attorney, and a local wrestling promotion wanted me to run a commercial for their wrestling show, and it was so cheap. I was skeptical. I'm like, there's no way you can have a commercial. No, it's on this channel. So I started running commercials, got to know people at the TV station. They were kind of thinking about doing a late night horror host kind of show, and I'm like, I'm your guy. I had lived in LA in the past and had kind of came home, went to law school, had done some horror things, almost 20 years ago, was almost completely out of the game, so to speak, and kind of got sucked back into it. And it has been a wild ride. And it's started airing on originally Channel 51, the MeTV affiliate on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And then that station was sold, and now we run on Ocean 7, which is a larger low power station over the air and on cable systems. And then after we air it there, we also syndicate it through a syndication platform. We also just directly send it to certain stations, and we archive our episodes on YouTube. Unfortunately, our YouTube got hacked a while back, so we're trying to rebuild that. So same thing with some of our social media. It just kind of, I don't know, it really set us back. We've kind of recovered, and we're trying to add new episodes up there. And we have a lot of fun simulcasting episodes. There's kind of a lively chat group that kind of joins when we do each kind of premiere episode. We typically try to get a new episode out every Friday night at 10 Central. And then that same episode typically runs again as an encore on WWON New York 48, which is a great channel up in New York that has a great Roku component, so you can watch it anywhere. But it's a New York-based channel. That's the two stations that we try to run new every week, and then we syndicate out to, Fearflix, Betamax TV. We occasionally run on the Monster Channel, and just stations all around the country. It has been a wild trip. I never imagined doing this little local horror host show that it would blow up the way that it has. It's been a blessing.
And someone for instance with me, a huge horror fan, and to even have a horror YouTube channel that people actually watch, which is amazing. It's incredible. It's awesome. It's awesome talking about and working in horror.
We do a pretty good job of trying to mix up some of the classics, and then there's only so much public domain you can run before people get tired of it. Like this past weekend, we ran Tina Krause's film Limbo, which is an amazing, I would call it an experimental avant-garde horror film, multi-different mediums, some of it shot on actual film stock, some on digital video, just a great collage work of film. And then we run a lot of James Ian Mayer's films. He's a local filmmaker, an indie filmmaker based out of Indiana, works with the legend George Stover and Liana Chamish and some other Mel Heflin, works with some veterans and some indie horror darlings, for lack of a better word. We've also ran Michael Rodriguez's film Daisy, great creature feature, practical effects, filmed in Fresno, California. I was lucky enough to have a tiny cameo in it, but it's top-notch indie horror. And that's one of the things that's kind of set us apart, is that we're just not running the same public domain or the same few films that you're able to license. We'll get out there and throw an indie horror feature in there. Obviously heavily edited for TV, what I call PG, pushing the envelope of PG-13.
So I grew up in the 80s, and I used to
too.
love, and I used to love, there was Channel 54 when I was growing up, and
UHF TV. Those were old UHF channels. Same generation. Speaking, if you love the 80s, there's a film that I'm kind of, I wouldn't say associate producing on it or anything, but I'm more of a consultant on, so to speak, and just really a big supporter. And I'll send you the link to the trailer. It's called Mary Day and the Scream Queens. It features Brink Stevens, legend, Michelle Bauer, Lisa London, and just a host of others, Jennifer Moriarty. It's going to be and her daughter Hennessy Moriarty is going to be a breakout. It's showing some of these 80s Scream Queens in just a whole new light. I mean, it is absolutely an amazing film. I can't wait to send you the teaser trailer. When that comes out, it's going to reinvigorate, some of these, the way that you look at some of these Scream Queens, because it's just such superb work. At an amazing location, amazing script, just great people behind it. I'm so fortunate to know them.
Yes, and like I miss those days, man. I miss those days because like I got introduced to like movies like Chud and the Full Moon movies.
Oh, absolutely. Some of those great Charles Band films. You just can't miss. You can't go wrong with those.
And it's kind of sad that those days are gone because, like, yeah, okay, you can watch stuff on streaming service, but sometimes is when you turn the TV on and whatever is on, you got to watch it. It actually forces you to watch things that you normally wouldn't watch or never heard of.
Absolutely. It just also kind of, what am I trying to say? There's just something about that film as opposed to digital video. There's something, I don't know if it's nostalgia now or not, but there's just something about it harkens back to that, the practical effects. There's no CGI, there's none of that. And there's just something kind of endearing about that. I totally get where you're coming from on that. So
it's grimy and dirty. That's how I explain the look and the feel is just grimy and dirty. And it feels like a horror film.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of 80s slashers and even early 90s. I think horror kind of changed for some great ways when it went to digital video, kind of democratized the genre, allowed people to get in there at a low point of entry. But by the same token, there was some horror kind of changed in the late 90s when some of the technology, came on the scene and kind of democratized and allowed some people to get involved. Some of them were some great new voices, some great new directors. And there's also some stuff out there that you would have that should never have probably been made, to be perfectly honest with you.
I agree.
I'm not knocking anybody's vision, not knocking anybody's talent. Hey, anybody that can get something made, hats off to you. But I'm like, you might have wanted to do a little more pre-production on that. So, work within your budgetary limitations.
Exactly. Now, horror had a weird space in the mid 90s, early 2000s, where it was, I called it the teen horror decade. When Scream has success, which was a great movie, it seemed like there was like knockoff after knockoff after knockoff of Scream repeats for 10 years. And that was horror.
It's the classic. Horror is I consider myself more of a horror historian than a horror host in certain respects. Horror goes in cycles. I mean, you can look at what Halloween did in 1978 with the slasher genre. We had about a 10-year run, same thing, almost a decade run of kind of teenage, college age, 20-something slasher films, all somewhat of a derivative, but they were some much more unique spins. But again, the 90s were a little different because they were riffing on the 80s. They were riffing on some of the tropes and stuff that kind of makes it a little different than the 80s kind of spin-offs or the different takes on Halloween. So,
and yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, if you look at horror, I feel like I'm a horror historian too. You have that new creative idea that no one's seen before. It comes out, that film. And then you have a whole stretch it lasts for about 10 years where, filmmakers are like, let's want to latch on. The Blair Witch was such a success, so let's do found footage movies for 10 years. And it just burns itself out to the point where horror dies. It seems like every 10 years horror dies. It flatlines, and then somebody comes out with something new and it brings it back up.
Absolutely. I agree with you. It runs in, it's peaks and valleys, and sometimes those valleys can get really deep and those peaks really high. But, again, I think we're about to enter another transition period. I don't know. We've got kind of the Terrifier, kind of the excessive gore subgenre. We got a lot of retro slashers that are out there, and then we have some experimental stuff. The whole kind of Japanese horror things just about died out completely. That was a hot genre. The remakes of of Asian horror films, that's not the and it's just not nearly as big as it once was 10, 15 years ago. I think we're due a rebirth of something, so it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. So, I mean, look at what Blumhouse is doing. There's so much great horror out there. I just don't know. We're kind of in a transition time. So, and there's so much. There's indie horror, and there's different just scales within indie horror on budget level as well. So, I mean, it's so it just runs the gamut right now. It's kind of a wide open field.
Do you think right now, I mean, like you were saying, when it comes to right now, horror is peaking. I mean, we have some great movies that are out right now. Do you think the downfall is coming soon? Do you think that?
I mean, horror never dies. Don't get me wrong; it never dies. But I think that we're probably getting close to the precipice of a peak, and then we're gonna see a valley soon, and you're gonna see a lot of people still trying to resurrect. I think you're gonna see a little lull, and there'll be somebody that's going to do a spin on something old and make it new again. So horror does a great job of that, probably better than any other film genre. It's taking something old, adding something to it, and making it, I wouldn't say a derivative work, that's too strong, but putting such a new spin on it that, what is old is new again, the classic saying. So
now when it comes to Hollywood horror, we have our classics that we love. We love Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, so forth. Do you think Hollywood? Do you think that's a wrong idea to keep pushing these classic cons compared to allowing someone like Ty West, who made X and the Pearl series, to have this new voice?
Again, I think there's always going to be a market for new voices, but obviously I don't pretend to know what the studio talking heads and the people there know, but I can tell you they're making money with it or they would quit doing it. So there's still some kind of audience, and you never know what the foreign market wants as well. I think sometimes there's a much more of a hankering for certain remakes or spinoffs, maybe in a foreign market that as opposed to America itself, because of the familiarity. There's always going to be that core horror audience that's just diehard built in. So, but I do think that we're going to get horror fatigue I think we're coming up on nostalgia fatigue in horror. And I think once that nostalgia fatigue finally, that wave crests, there's going to be a lull, and then it'll rebuild back up. So.
Yeah, because I'm a huge Halloween fan, but I'm done with Halloween, and especially after the last trilogy. I love the first one, but the other two, I think we need a break from Halloween. But I hear that they are making another Halloween film.
Well, Travis, here's the thing about Halloween. This is just the enduring quality of Halloween. I went to Halloween Hotness recently in LA, a great charity event, kind of a great kind of horror gathering in certain respects. While I was there, I went to the actual Michael Myers house in South Pasadena and the famous hedge and everything. You should have seen the people waiting to get photos there. I mean, it's just such an iconic film. But again, I kind of, as bad as I hate to say that, this as much as I like Halloween, I'm having some Michael Myers fatigue right now. So
me too.
Again, but just seeing the reactions to the fans taking and that's one of the things that we've done with After Hours Cinema. We've added this little horror on location where we go around to these famous filming locations. Me and actor stunt coordinator Eric Spudik went there and shot some great footage, and there were people all around waiting to get photos. I mean, I kind of felt sorry for the people that had the home right by the famous hedge that Michael Myers ducks behind the hedge, because there was just like a line of people wanting to duck behind a hedge and take a photo, So it's but Michael Myers fatigue, I think, is definitely a thing. I think part of that new trilogy was it was too much, too soon, and the films came out too closely together. So, but we're we're talking about a film that's about 45 years old now. So
1979. It was
Yeah.
the
So
first
we're
1978. Yeah, it was the
yeah,
first one.
we're coming up. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see when you finally hit that 50-year mark. I mean,
Mhm.
there's just so many sequels. And again, whether or not those are worthy sequels, do we need another sequel? I mean, can we reimagine Michael Myers? I mean, it, there can be, like I said, there's Michael Myers fatigue and there's iconic uh, character fatigue out there because I hear it. I go to a fair amount of horror conventions and talk to a lot of people in the horror, and I'm hearing those same sentiments expressed. So, not to take away from any of the films or any of the sequels. I mean, they're eminently watchable and great films, but it's time to give it a rest and hey, maybe bring it back on the 50th. So,
Yeah, and also too, what the issue is too with it was there's so many different storylines. Like it doesn't flow with different storylines, so it's just and after a while it just becomes confusing if you have so many. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre series is the worst for this because
mhm.
there's so many different remakes and storylines. This one's gonna follow this one, go back to part one, and it's just so confusing. And as a
I,
fan, it's just
I
too much.
love. Obviously, the first one is one of those seminal horror films that everyone needs to see. Toby Hooper. I thought the second, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first sequel, I thought was pretty good with Dennis Hopper, Caroline
I love
Williams.
it.
But I'm like you. After that, to me, I know they kind of reimagined it. In the was that either the late '90s or early 2000s with Jessica Biel, Michael Balfour, some of those, Eric Balfour. To me, that's just it doesn't lend it that genre that type of film just didn't lend itself to multiple sequels, in my humble opinion. So
Mhm.
or sequels without a longer time span between the two. So because
Correct.
again, there's no continuity, with some of the more minor characters. It's obviously you've got Leatherface and the family, that kind of continuity, but some of the final girl, as I call it, or the final
Yeah.
survivor continuity in those. So maybe, hey, again, there's obviously people buying it and watching it because they
Yeah.
keep making them. So
I agree. All right, so Lee, I'm gonna ask you. Listen, I do this every once in a while. I'm gonna ask you three random horror questions. This is your
okay,
personal opinion, though. Okay,
I'm
you
ready.
ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The first question is: we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what is one horror movie series that you wish will take a hiatus?
Oh man, that is a tough one. I am. Oh, this is going to hurt a lot of feelings because it's still so fresh. But with the third Terrifier, I think Terrifier probably. I think it's a perfect trilogy. I'm not ready for a Terrifier 4. I'm
Yeah,
just not. So I mean, that's my humble opinion on that. I think it's again, groundbreaking, the first two. I mean, there was even a short film, if I remember, that kind of launched
hmm
the concept and everything. But I think with this third film, I just don't know if a fourth film. And again, obviously they've got a formula that's working. I mean, it's one of the highest grossing films of the year. I just, to me, when you push that level of gore for too long, you get that level of gore and that type of subgenre, you know, you get fatigue on that quicker than I think other genres. That's my humble opinion on that. So
but I'm 100% agreement with you on that. But not only that, there's no storyline. There's no there's no character development. There's no really
yeah,
anything. And those movies are way too long. At two and a
mm,
half hours
yeah.
of sitting through those movies, just watch over the top gore over. I saw part two and part three in the theaters, and I'm telling you, part three, I was looking at my phone at some point, like, okay, this is too long. This is too much,
Yeah.
and like this is getting long in the tooth. And I heard that this was supposed to be the last one, but I guess money talks, and we're going to see another
It's
one.
so successful. I'm going to be again. I could be totally mistaken. I don't pretend to have any inside knowledge or nothing, but at all. I just when something that successful, it's hard to not to make one more.
Yeah,
Let's go into that reservoir one more time for a giant
yeah,
hit. So again, I think clown horror. I mean, you have fans of it. I have, again, obviously it's a classic. I am not the biggest fan of clown-based horror, but I mean, I get it. It can be very creepy and very terrifying. But again, that's just a personal preference. So,
Yeah.
As far as but again, I think, as I was saying, I think excessive gore, people tire out of that quicker than anything.
Yeah, I agree. I'm to that point. All right. Second question. What is one horror movie that everybody loves and you're like, it's okay, but I don't understand why people love it so much?
Oh, Travis, you're hitting me with some hard ones. I was ready to answer favorite horror film of all time, but that one is oh my goodness. Probably some of the Hellraiser series. I thought the first one was good, but a lot of people loved that whole franchise. I was, don't get me wrong, like the first film, but the second ones, I was, the subsequent sequels, I was just really not that into. Again, I know Clive Barker is an amazing horror genius and an icon, but it was something that I was just not personally a big fan of after the first one.
I actually like the first three. After
Mhm.
that, I mean, it's complete. I like the first two. Part three was okay, but the other ones were just unwatchable. And,
Yeah.
and 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 the, and the remake on Hulu, I actually enjoyed that one.
Mhm.
Except for the main character, I found absolutely annoying.
Horror to me, that usually the first sequel's pretty good. To the time you get to that third sequel, a lot of times it's hard to to add a new spin, on it a lot
Yeah,
of times. A lot of times it just seems like they're going through the motions. A lot of times on a third sequel, a lot of times. Now, certain times, I mean, they're great. They're as good as the original. So
the only time I can think of that is Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. I think that is the best one out of the series.
if I remember, that was the one directed by Rennie Harlan, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
was
think so.
definitely an improvement on the first sequel. Again,
Yeah.
hard to beat. The first one is so freaking iconic. But I mean,
Mhm.
I agree with you, 100% on that. So the part three was really, really good.
Final question. All right. What is a horror movie that you absolutely love that you think that most people don't know about and they shouldn't know about?
Oh, I have such obscure taste. Trying to think of something a little more mainstream, but uh, I think if you have never seen what's called the Blind Dead trilogy, Night of the
I haven't.
Seagulls, you know, uh, the Ghost Galleon and some of those Spanish horror films, you're really missing out. There's a lot of people that talk about how great Black Sunday is by Mario Bava, and they've never really seen how amazing it is. One of those classics, I think, would be one of the ones that I don't think people have seen enough. So it's some of the European horror films. So
I'm going to check those out.
I watched
Um,
a very good horror film. Shocking how ahead of its time was. It's on Tubi with subtitles. It's called The Witch. It's a 1951 Finnish from Finland horror film that is 25 years ahead of its time. Black and white. It's amazing. Just simply
all right.
called The Witch.
I love to hear people's choices on that because I love to watch horror movies and listen, I don't know all of them, so there's some
Mhm.
good stuff out there, especially with
Oh yeah.
Tubi and streaming service. You can watch
Oh
them for
yeah,
free too.
you can go down the Tubi rabbit hole. So
Yes.
I have gotten on a Italian giallo horror kick lately, and it just went, you know, went off the deep end on Tubi watching them. So
Yes. I do that all the time. That's why I
Plex,
have a
Plex
Tubi
has a pretty
Tuesday.
good collection too. I'll have to tip my hat to Plex too. So
Oh, really? See,
yeah, Plex.
I don't watch Plex.
Its Plex has probably two even more commercials than Tubi. That's its only hiccup in my opinion, but it has some things that Tubi doesn't have.
Lee.
Yeah, you try any other? I'm waiting on the next
Oh.
question.
I thought you froze. I was like,
No,
I said
no,
one second.
no.
Okay. All right.
Hopefully you'll edit that out. So
Yes, I'll edit out because we were just staring at each other. I was like, did he just freeze?
yeah, I was waiting on the next question. So
okay. Because normally somebody freezes, I don't move or say nothing because sometimes the recording still picks it up, and I don't have to edit anything out. So I just don't say nothing.
I was taking a screen grab earlier. Is that okay? That doesn't show up.
Yeah,
on
that's
your
fine.
end. Okay.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Well,
all right. So real quick, Lee, where could everyone find you and your work?
Again, we're on all 3 major social media platforms. We're the only After Hours Cinema on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're probably more active on Instagram because that was the one platform that was not subject to the hack. We've also recently developed, the new Slasher app. We have a profile on there. I'm still learning how to use it and everything. It seems to be very fan friendly, very fan driven. But certainly, and we have a YouTube channel, After Hours Cinema. We're slowly adding stuff on there. Trying to rebuild from that atrocious hack that we had. But we're making a concerted effort to try to get something up there at least once a week. So. And then you can also find us at a lot. Starting to go to a lot of conventions. I'm going to the St. Tammany Comic-Con this week, Collectors Con, this weekend. It's kind of a multi-fandom convention. I'm going to be going to Rocket City Con up in Huntsville the very first weekend of January. Carolina Fear Fest. There's just a lot of conventions and things.
Oh.
So just lots of fun. I'm getting out. I'm starting to do a little more shooting on location, trying to find a way to kind of spice up some of these public domains and some of these indie films, going to some of these famous filming locations. So they filmed Friday the 13th, Part 7, fairly close to where I live. So we're going to go down there and shoot some stuff around that cabin and that lake and things like that. They're a lot of fun for some people. For some reason, those segments are so well received.
Awesome. And I was about to ask you, do you ever get to the East Coast? But you said Carolina Fear Festival.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Matt Burns.
Oh, absolutely. I can't say enough good things about Matt Burns and Mark Byrne. They're both super talented. I've had the great pleasure of going up to Matt was screening some films in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. I was up in doing a reserve duty stint in Washington, D.C. a couple years ago. So got to spend some great time with them and meet some great people. And Matt, I joke with him that because he's gotten me some roles, I joke with him that he's kind of my de facto agent. He gets a big laugh out of it. He's certainly not that, but it's an inside joke between the two of us. He's been a definite cheerleader for After Hours Cinema. I cannot say enough good things about him or Mark. Like I said, this past year, working with Michael Rodriguez, working with James Ian Mayer, Dawn DeVerger, who's been on your show. I've gotten to work with the lovely Sherry Davis, just a whole group of great, talented people. Eric Russo. Again, the list could go on and on. It's just I've had a remarkable run the past couple of years in the horror business. So
I love it.
Just as a fan, as a horror historian, and doing kind of this show. Again, when you love it, it's just so much fun. So.
It is, man, and Matt and Mark helped me star in my first horror movie, which was Blood and Breakfast, which I got to go to the premiere in Waynesboro a couple weeks ago. So it was so much fun.
So looking forward to seeing that. When it comes to Carolina Fear Fest, so looking forward to that. So I actually was able to secure a good friend of mine, Dr. David Sandy, who's on the poster. I got him helped recruit him as one of the associate producers on there. I was really excited about the cast. It had, Nancy Ann Ritter, had Lisa Neal, then it had George Stover, who's just kind of somebody who's worked with, John Waters and has worked with, just some classic people like that. You can't help but, go see a film like that. So,
yeah. And I got to work in the scene with George, and the guy is hilarious. Off the side, absolutely hilarious.
Oh, nice. I'm looking forward to meeting him. I know Matt and Mark are hopefully going to try to arrange that soon. I'd love to interview him for After Hours Cinema, in some shape, some kind of on location type thing. So, but he is he's definitely an icon of indie horror, especially in that I guess that's the Baltimore, DC metro area. So
yep. By the way, shout out to Baltimore. Yeah. So listen, Lee, this has been. By the way, Lee. By the way, are you doing any other East Coast? I'm in Baltimore. Are there any other East Coast you're doing?
I don't know. I have thought about coming back up there. Hope there's a possibility of coming up there in March. I'm not sure. I think there might be a showing in Winchester pretty soon of Blood and Breakfast. I was thinking about trying to go up, possibly going up there. I'm just not sure. But right now I've got there's a convention that I might be doing. Of course, it's not the East Coast, up in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, but definitely looking at expanding because, again, that whole Baltimore, Hagerstown, Maryland, that whole little part of the DC, I might be saying it wrong. I'm going to consider that the whole Baltimore, DC metroplex seems to be kind of a hotbed of indie horror. So I'm going to definitely try to go up there and do some filming, do some on location, do some interviews, spicing up. Like I went up and before I really knew what I was doing, I went up to like Burkittsville, Maryland. I would like to go back now that I really have a more of a formula down to do the whole Blair Witch thing, go shoot at the Exorcist Steps in Georgetown. A trip to that area is definitely on the horizon. I'm just not sure when. So you're Baltimore based?
Baltimore based. Baltimore, Maryland.
Well, like I said, I know everything Matt and Mark, they're just saying it's just such a there's some great horror hosts up there too. You got Count Gorvidal in DC, Dr. Sarcophagi. I mean, there's a good horror host community up there as well. So again, just a great
horror scene right now in the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Okay.
It's a huge horror scene. So,
I was just trying to think, who was the director up there? He passed away, but he was making a lot of low-budget science fiction films, actually shot on film beginning in the late 70s all the way up until his death. And George Stover was in some of his films. I was just watching one the other night. I think one of them was Alien.
I know who you're talking about.
It's just,
I can't think of his name.
It's escaping me right now, but J.J. Abrams, as a teenager, scored one of his films. So there's a great documentary about him on Tubi that I watched, and I'm embarrassed that I cannot remember the name. So.
Yes.
As soon as we stop recording, it will boom. The IMDb in my mind will go off. So, but if you haven't got a chance, I would love to. If you'll via your email, I'll Dropbox you some great indie horror films to watch. So
definitely, man, definitely.
Some episodes, like I said, that I think that you're going to really like. Some of them, some pretty obscure stuff, and some of them that are, that you're going to be like, man, why isn't this a bigger movie? So
I love it, man. Listen, send them to me because I did reviews too. So of random horror movies that no one know about. So like,
I've got a perfect one. I'm going to send you one tonight. Okay. I'm curious to get your time. I'm looking forward to watching that video on it. So
awesome, and also look forward to my review of Blood and Breakfast coming up soon as well. So definitely
great. I can't. Yes, I haven't seen the film, so I hope there's no spoilers in it. So
no spoilers. Okay, because I want everybody to see it because I'm in it. So
there you go. Like I said, you can also shout out. I always tell everybody go visit my IMDb page. I'm definitely growing the credits and everything. So I'll do the same for you as well. So
I appreciate it, my friend. Well, listen, everybody, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. Get over there and check out After Hours Cinema. Thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. That's Lee Turner. We'll see you.
Thank you, guys. Check out After Hours Cinema every Friday night, guys.
See you soon. All right, buddy. That was good.
Oh, great.